All right, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September Reading Wrap-Up Live Show. My name is Gwen. This is my channel. You can find me on Instagram at Lavender Mud, but I have some returning friends and some new friends with me tonight. Kelsey, Heather, Keeley. I'm so excited to have you guys on. We were just talking backstage about like all the commonalities that we have in common and stuff like that. So I think that's super fun. So if anybody's here and watching, let me know how September is going for you reading wise, what your favorite book is that you've read so far this month. And then we're just going to do a little round of introductions. Kelsey, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I'm Kelsey. I am essentially booked on Instagram and on YouTube. I've been on like Bookstagram since 2017, but only started my YouTube channel a year ago. I just came up on my year anniversary. I read like everything, but the books I tend to give 5 stars are quiet, character-driven novels, and that shocks me, but here we are.
I love that. So what's like giving us example of like one of those quiet character-driven stories that you love?
So like Crossing to Safety by Wallace Stegner is a classic. And like this year I have really liked like Anne Patchett, so The Dutch House, which there's kind of a house. There's not a lot of plot in the books that I like. It's more very introspective.
So like basically the opposite of me, and you will love it.
Yeah. And I had a bunch of ideas like before this, and now I can't think of a single one that I wanted to talk about. So here we are tonight.
Yeah. It's like, welcome to the live show where everything leaves your head at once. Heather, you want to do your introduction?
Sure. So I'm Heather. My channel and my Instagram is Books and Heather. And I read a lot of fantasy and thrillers, but also like I think my highest rated books are always literary fiction. So a little bit of everything. I guess I like romance. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Okay, awesome. Keeley, what about you?
Hi, I'm Keeley. My Instagram and YouTube are Vampire Keeley. I've actually been on BookTube since 2015, but I took like a 1.5-year break and restarted my channel as Vampire Keeley. And my favorite genres are horror and thriller. But I basically read everything. However, I've kind of left fantasy within the last year. So pretty much everything except fantasy right now.
Okay, yeah. I feel like I used to say like thrillers and romance were my top 2 genres, but then I started exploring horror, so I've read a lot of that, and then really just general fiction. I feel like I've read more literary fiction, general fiction like last year and this year than any year prior, so I don't know what's happening to me, but I just read all of the things. I don't read like fantasy books, but I do read books that have fantasy elements in them. So I'm still going to say I read fantasy. Yeah. Okay. So do you guys post monthly reading wrap-ups on your channel? Just wondering. So they'll know to go look on your channels.
Yeah, I usually do as close. Usually I post on Sundays. So whatever is like that first Sunday of the month is usually when I do my wrap-ups.
Okay.
I do, but since school started, I got really lazy with it, but I'm starting back in October posting my September wrap-up, so there will be one soon.
Okay, good. What about you?
And same thing as Heather. I usually post the first Tuesday of every month, but I am a first-year high school teacher now, and so September was a kind of a break time on my channel. But yes, I love wrap-ups, so.
Yeah, I think those are one of the most popular, like most viewed videos on YouTube. All of their information is linked in the description box, so you can go subscribe to all of them. I like their content for different reasons. I probably read the most like Keeley of every, of the 3 of you here, but like I've followed Kelsey the longest, and like she makes me like expand my reading taste, and like she can just sell me on a book, y'all. Like it's like totally not my genre, like these quiet, plotless books. And I'm like, why do I want to read this?
You called me dangerous. And I was like, that's the best compliment ever.
Yeah, so I do these like I do these night owl shout outs for my patrons, and Kelsey is one of my patrons. And I said she's dangerous. She goes, ooh, I've never been called dangerous before. So I thought that was so funny. Okay, let's get through some of these comments. Hello, Jessie. This is Jessie's favorite video that I do, my reading wrap-up live show. Hey, Keisha. Yeah, can't wait to see what I have in store. Not much, but hello, Lena. I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever, Lena. Hey, Tyra. Summer's here. Faith is here. Hello, everybody. Kayla just finished The Inmate. It was my favorite book of September. Ooh, that's so exciting. Haven't read that one yet, but I just recently read 2 of her books for the very first time, so that was exciting.
Yeah, I need to read her.
Yes, you do. You really, really do. Like, is it mind-blowing the best thriller you're ever going to read in your life? No, but they're super fun. They're super fun.
That's all I care about.
Yeah, exactly. Hello, Yvette. Hello, Angel. Brandon's here. Kelsey does give some great recs. Mine is the favorite palace. She stands by it.
That's one of my quiet novels.
Yeah, the favorite palace. Hello, Meg. Yeah, and Comfort Me with Alice. So there, Lena. Oh my goodness. So we're just going to go through all of the books we read. We're going to show you the books if we have physical copies of the books, and we will include our star rating and general thoughts. How many books did you read this month, you guys? I don't know how many I read. Let's see.
I'm at 8 so far.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm also at 8. My reading has been like cut in half, so
Okay.
I'm kind of pleased with 8.
Yeah, I read 5, which my reading has definitely slowed down, but 2 of those books were 400 plus page fantasy books, so I feel like it was more.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you read the chunky books, you're like, this counts as 2, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll just go first since I kind of have like a lot. But then I want to remind everybody what I said backstage. I don't have a job. So this is my job. So I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, you read so much. Because that's what people always say. And it's like, because reading is literally my job. So
When I was a substitute teacher, in high school, I read for 8 hours a day. That's all I did. But now that I'm actually teaching, I'm like,
now you're like, I read for maybe 30 minutes before I fall asleep.
Yeah.
Okay, so starting off, I read 2 Freida McFadden books. I read The Housemaid and The Coworker. I liked The Housemaid probably more. I gave it 4 stars, and I gave this one 3 stars. I would have given this 5 stars, but it kind of was a blend of some other thrillers that I read. If I would not have read those thrillers, I think this would have been 5 stars. But because I like kind of saw some stuff coming and stuff like that, I was like, okay, and it's been done before. I was like, okay, 4 stars, but like super solid, like super fun. Still recommend it, even with reading those other books. And this one was fun too, just not as, but I definitely want to read more Freida McFadden. And I did do a video, author taste test of these 2 books. So if you're interested in like more of my in-depth thoughts, I do have that available on my channel. I read The Stranger Diaries by Ellie Griffiths. This is a dark academia, gothic murder mystery. I read this for my podcast. The book discussion with Jessie actually goes live on my podcast tomorrow. I did post a reading vlog, an exclusive reading vlog for my patrons of this book. I think the discussion is really great. So if you tune into my podcast tomorrow morning, you can hear Jessie and I share all of our thoughts and feelings on this one. But overall, I thought it was, in the beginning, I was really in it. I was actually doing some like Patreon reading sprints, and I was like, oh, it was so good. It was like more slower paced, gothic, mysterious. I was just in it. But then like towards the end, it started kind of like, the pacing got off, and like the who done it was cool, the why done it was lame, but I definitely recommend tuning into that if you've read it, or if you just don't care to read it, because we definitely do like talk spoilers and everything like that. I did 2 book of the month vlogs this month. The first one I did Pull Me Under by Kelly Luce, The Collected Regrets of Clover, and Hello Stranger. So that's like a video on my channel if you want more of my in-depth thoughts. My favorite of the bunch was The Collected Regrets of Clover. Spoiler alert, this will be in my top favorites of the entire year. I don't see anything coming close to this. So far, my favorite of the year is Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. That's my new favorite book of all time. And if I would not have read that book this year, this would be my favorite book of the year. This was just so good. And I don't think I was able to I have not stopped thinking about this book. There's so many quotable things. I loved the characters. If you have not read this book, you need to read this book. So there's that. And then I read The September House. Me and my husband, we went on a little Saturday date, and we went to breakfast, and then he bought me this book, and I read it, and I left it unrated because I feel like sometimes being on social media, YouTube, podcast, Instagram, Goodreads, Storygraph, all that, it forces you to put a star rating on everything, but I'm a rebel, so I don't. And this is a book that I read, I absorbed the story, and that's all I really needed to do. I don't feel like I need to put a rating on it. So there's that. It's unrated. Then I did another book of the month vlog that just went live today. It included the new Lisa Joel book, None of This Is True, The Stranger Upstairs, and The Many Lives of Mama Love. I would say of these, these two both got 4 stars from me. If you're looking for a thriller, definitely read this one. If you're looking for something nonfiction, but also just so interesting. I really do love memoirs like this. I feel like this could be the next Jeanette McCurdy from last year. This is the new memoir that everybody really needs to read. It was so good. And then just some books that I have read since then. I read some things for the Sleep When I'm Dead book club readathon. I read The Good Lie by A.R. Torrey. I also talk about this in a vlog, so you can hear more of my thoughts, but I rated that 4 stars. I read Yellowface by Ruff Kwong, and this was also for my in-person book club. And I stand by my thoughts and feelings about this. This book was just not for me. I don't like this type of story. It's very literary. It's satirical. It's more character-driven than plot-driven. It's more social commentary than I think should be crammed into one book. So literary merit, 5 out of 5 stars. Enjoyment level, 2 out of 5 stars. That's just my personal preference. And then I also read Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. I was not impressed with this. It did not feel like Alice Feeney to me. And I also gave this one 2 stars. And Alice Feeney's been a fave the last couple years. So I don't know what happened there. Then since that, I did not vlog these books, and I'm kind of sad, but I read The 7-Year Slip, and I started buddy reading it with one friend. They gave up on it. So I buddy read it with another friend, and it was 5 out of 5 stars, new favorite romance book. It is so cute. I actually bought tabs so I could tab it, and I highlighted in it. It was so adorable. And then last but not least, I read All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, which he's one of my favorite authors. Usually I really fall in love with his characters, and then the stories are super action-packed, high-octane action movie thrillers. But this one, I liked Titus and I liked his dad, but I didn't love them like I liked Ike and Buddy Lee from Razorblade Tears or Beauregard Bug from Blacktop Wasteland. So I didn't have as deep a connection with these characters as Razorblade Tears. They were still decent. The story was dark, but it could have been darker, and it also could have been more action-packed. I think if they would have taken, there's some romance subplots that happen in here. I think if those would have been taken out, because I was they weren't in his other books. Why is it in here? If those would have been taken out, more action and gore, it probably would have been good. But what did I rate this? I gave it 4 stars, but I honestly think it's more like a 3.5, but I don't do half stars. So because it's one of my favorite authors, I was okay, I'll give you 4 stars for this one. So that's what I've read so far. All right. Yay. Kelsey, what about you?
Yeah, so like I said, I've read 8 books this month, and I'm going to go by ratings because that's just how I set up the books. And I have a few library books that had to go back already, and one I just wanted out of my house because I hated it so much. So I don't have that one. And that one is the 2-star book because I just, if I finish the book, I'm going to give it 2 stars, although it is a 1-star book. It's Bonk by Mary Roach. We read it for my In Real Life book club, and it's the scientific something of science and sex. And she writes really funny science books, but she tries too hard, and It was just gross. Is like all I have to say. My entire book club thought that it was disgusting.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, how did your book club?
Yeah, it was like universally, I think it's probably the most hated book we've read.
Okay.
And we've been meeting since like 2019 or something. And
Wow.
We have quite a few books in our like backlist. I think this is the least favorite. And then I read this, I got as an e-galley, Enchanted to Meet You by 𝒔𝒂𝒗𝒆. And it's an adult romance. She wrote The Princess Diaries, which I like went bananas for in high school. It's an adult romance, but it read YA, and I just didn't like it. It's cute. It's spoopy. Like if you kind of want that like fun, witchy romance, it was cute, but it just wasn't it for me. And then I read Burn the Negative. These are 3 stars now. So I read Burn the Negative by Josh Winning, and I don't think this is getting a lot of hype, but it's a mixed format horror thriller type book. And this child star was a part of the most cursed horror movie in history. And everybody starts dying based on the murders in the movie. And so she escapes, like she's done as a child actress because everybody's dying around her. And then fast forward to the future and she gets called back to a remake and the deaths start happening again. And it's just mixed format. It was really fun to read. But at the end, like how things unraveled was kind of cheesy. So it kind of fell flat for me, but I did have a lot of fun reading it. The next one I read was On Earth as Is in Television. And when I talk about quiet, character-driven books, this is that. This is about 4 characters. One is a cat. And aliens come to Earth and like hover over Earth, and then they just leave. And everybody's like, what does the world do when that happens? It's really, really funny. The author just has a really hilarious voice, but like nothing really happens. So if you are not a character-driven person, you're going to hate it. It was really long. So it got 3 stars because I kind of just reached a point where I didn't want to keep reading. And then this is going to be on Book of the Month next month. It's been hyped as a spoiler. It is The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Anne Randall. And I got it through eBay. Here's the cover if my Kindle will work. But it was touted as Gilmore Girls meets Practical Magic. Like,
I've seen that everywhere.
And it is really cute. I didn't really get the Gilmore Girl vibes necessarily. And it's actually, I thought it'd be more romance, but it definitely is not. More women's fiction, I would say. But it really deals with grief. And I really like that in books. So I do really recommend this if you're looking for an add-on or whatever it ends up being for Book of the Month next month. I enjoyed it, and it'd be perfect for October. I think it came out on Tuesday. So some people I know I've seen it on YouTube already. And then now we're going to go to 4 stars. This was one that was on audio through the library. It's called It Was an Ugly Couch Anyway by Elizabeth Passarella. And she's a columnist for Southern Living. But she just kind of, I like books and essay that are memoirs. And she just has a really fun voice, and it was really funny. She talks about kind of letting go of items in your life, and then all the essays are kind of around that. It was enjoyable. It made me cry a few times because her husband got really sick and during the pandemic and stuff, and so she was trying to cope with that while raising her family. It was just a really beautifully done book. And then the last 2, Financial Feminist is my nonfiction book of the month. I follow Tori Dunlap and I listen to her podcast, and this is her book. Really helpful budgeting stuff, but it's written for women, and how a lot of systems, like women couldn't even get credit cards until like the 70s without their husband's approval. So she kind of just talks through how a lot of finance isn't geared towards women because that's just not how the structures were. And it was really enlightening, really helpful if you're like looking for a New Year's resolution book in 3 months. Might be a good one for you. And I think my favorite book of the month, What the Hex by Jessica Clare. Super steamy, super open door romance, witchy vibes, very spoopy. I was not expecting it to be as open door as it was, and I read a lot of open door. This is definitely up there. So
you're like, it is wide open, y'all.
It's like you're next to the bed, like you're right. But I don't know. I loved it so much. And
did you read the first book?
But I'm going to.
Okay.
I went to the library this month and I grabbed 3 like witchy romances off the shelf. Hint for some next month content on my channel.
Yeah.
But all 3 that I grabbed are book 2 in the romance series.
I will send you book 1 if I still have it.
Okay.
Because I have it, and I'll send it to you so you can have it.
Did you read the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just as steamy as this one from what I've heard too.
Yeah. So I'll send it to you. Yeah. So you can have the whole collection going.
So yeah, that was probably my favorite of the month. I had a blast reading it.
Awesome. So we're going to get some witchy, like a vlog from you in October. That's going to be super fun.
Yeah. I hope.
Yeah, hope. All right. What about you, Heather?
Okay, so there's just in a pile, and I'm just grabbing. So I actually just finished this one today, House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I loved it. It's YA, but like it doesn't feel YA. It's very spooky and creepy. It's like a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling with like a murder mystery aspect.
Okay.
So I really liked this one, and I want to get the sequel that just came out. So
That's one of my favorite books.
Is it fantasy?
Yes, it's fantasy.
I love that book.
There's magic and gods and a bunch of stuff.
But ever since Kendall posted the like book aesthetic reel for that book, I've literally been wanting to read it.
Like, I feel like she does atmosphere like nobody else I've ever read before.
And it's one of those that's not like super fantasy. Like, it's almost real world with the fantasy, kind of like you were talking about, which I like too. It was really
Maybe I'll try it from the library.
I like Gwen's face. She's like, "Am I interested?"
It was my favorite book.
Every time someone talks about it, I'm like, "Ooh, that's that book."
It was my favorite book of like 2020 or something.
Yeah, it was really good.
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's fine. So I don't forget about it. I left my book at school, but for one of my in-person book clubs, we read The Dead Romantics this year. And I gave that one 4 stars. I loved it. I think I liked the 7-Year Slip more than the
I did too. A lot of people asked.
The Dead Romantics both 5 stars.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I buddy read that with Elise, who's in the comments somewhere. So that was really
you're reading some good ones. Right?
Yeah.
I loved The Dead Romantics. I read it last year, rated it 5 stars. I was a little worried because I was like, okay, is this going to live up? But I loved the 7-Year Slip more.
But it was so funny. Like, it's a booktube darling, I feel like, and a bookstore darling. Everybody loves that book. But my in-person book club was so divided on it. And that was interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like some of the humor.
You didn't like it, Kelsey?
When I finished The Dead Romantics, I cried because it was over. Like, that's how emotionally attached to it I was.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I was just like, what do I do now? It's over.
Kelsey's like, I'm that person that didn't like it.
Well, but I'm going to talk about this when we get to like recommend a fall book. So I'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But it made like a great conversation because I'm so used to hearing how much everybody loves it, and then being able to like have that conversation and see why people don't. Like, that was a very valid conversation that we had.
Yeah.
But I loved it. So, okay. The Stranger Upstairs was my book of the month pick, and I read this for Upside Down Readathon for the haunted house prompt. And I know, Gwen, you were talking during, I think it was the I don't remember which sprints I was watching, but you said you liked it, and the twist was I gave it 2.75.
Yeah, it's weird because at the beginning of the book, I pretty much hated it. I just, nothing was happening. And I was like, why is this book like, but then at the end I was like, okay, I like it.
Stand the main character. So like I was hate reading it because of the main character. And then I didn't think the twist was twisting, but
yeah,
that's me.
Yeah.
But I did like her writing, and I think that like I still will pick up whatever she does next because I think she has potential with like the way that she writes creepy stuff. So I'm not like quitting on the author. It's just the book wasn't for me.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think we actually started talking about this with like my friend Jordan from Sorry Book Solid, and she was like the first of our friend group to read it. And she was saying that the twist was very, you know, like it was a very divided thing. Like you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, and it's polarizing, and it is what it is. And so then since then, I don't know, I was nervous to go into it, but then I was like, literally nothing's happening. Should I DNF now? 2 pages later, I'm like, how about now? But I was like, no, I'm going to stick it out. And I'm really glad that I did. But then how boring the beginning was, I was like, I can't give this more than 3 stars. Like I can't.
Mhm.
But then the author's note at the end, which you can't read the author's note at the end or any of that until you read the book because you'll be spoiled. But that really got to me too. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I appreciated the author's note a lot.
Yeah.
So, I actually finished this on the first day of the month, so I don't know how I'm counting it. This was my favorite book, Divine Rivals, 5 stars. I loved it. I cried. Like, it's one of those that I wish I could read for the first time already, and I just finished it. And the sequel comes out soon, so I don't have to wait. But I loved it. It's like fantasy, but also historical fiction, magic typewriters, anonymous love letters, and I loved everything about it.
I just started it, so I'm super excited.
Yeah, I loved everything about it. And then this is the book that took me like a week and a half to read. It's 𝒍𝒊𝒏𝒌𝒔, Queen of Shadows, book 4 in the Throne of Glass series. I really liked it. I gave this 4 stars. I can't really say much about it because it's the 4th book in the series, but it makes me really excited to keep reading and finish the rest of them. So
awesome.
That's funny. I hate Throne of Glass. I
hated the first 2 books. I hated them. I
only loved the first 2, and then I hate the rest because I hate growing with a fiery passion. I'm really passionate about my hatred for that series.
I appreciate your hatred.
I love that.
Because I've been reading the last one for like 7 years now, and I am committed to finishing it, but I'm also kind of like hate reading it at this point. But Empire of Storms was my least favorite book of last year. So but I think it's the reason why I stopped reading fantasy too. So but I love that you love it. All
right, Keeley, what did you read this month?
Okay, so my books are kind of weird. I decided I wanted to tackle my physical TBR this month, so I just picked a random shelf and I am reading straight through it. And as you can see, I picked this shelf, and so I started reading straight through it. So I started reading books that I've had for like 7+ years. And the first one was The Virals by Kathy and Brendan Reichs. So this is actually the creator of the TV show Bones, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And this book is really chaotic because the main girl is the niece of forensic anthropologist Temperance Brennan. There's a murder mystery, but then there's also an altered parvovirus where these kids get their DNA changed into wolves. So it's like there was just way too much going on. So I gave this one 3 stars. It read really quickly and I liked the friendship group, but I will not be continuing with the series because I felt like I had enough, but not horrible. I think I would have enjoyed it more maybe when I was younger because I've had that one forever. And then I went on to The Last Olympian by Rick Riordan. This was a reread for me. I'm marathon training, and so I only listen to audiobooks if they're rereads for me. And so I've been listening to this series because the TV show and the trailer just dropped this week, and I sobbed. I literally sobbed. I'm so excited. So 5 stars. This is one of my favorite books in the series. And then I picked up another one that I've had since 2017. I actually picked this one up in Wales when I visited. And this is kind of like a mystery thriller. We follow this girl, and all we know is that she has moved to the countryside in Wales and changed her name because she was kidnapped years ago, and it was like this viral case. And now she's at this like farm, and somebody's watching her. And that's all we know. So the first 100 pages, super intrigued. And then I got so bored with it. Like the middle part was so boring. But then the reveals were interesting, but I still gave it 2 stars because I was just so bored throughout it. But good memories associated with getting this book. So
yeah, that's always nice.
Yeah. And then the next one I read was The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. This is my first Paul Tremblay, and I've heard really, really good things. But this was another one where I was super interested at the beginning, and then I got really bored. And this book is like just over 300 pages, and it felt way too long for how short that was. But I want to see the movie really bad because the cast looks amazing. But I did like the little girl in here, the main or one of the main characters, liked her. But I gave this one, what did I give it? 2 stars. So, because I was just really bored with it, and I like wanted it to be done. I didn't want to read it anymore. And then a book that I don't have, I read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson because now I'm a high school English teacher. So technically I read the story 5 times for each of my classes. And I gave this one 5 stars. I really enjoyed seeing my class's reaction to it. And we're also going to be reading The Hunger Games later in the year, and this has a lot of similarities to that story. So I gave that one 5 stars. I really liked it. And then another one I don't have, I read The Shadow Crosser by J.C. Cervantes, and this is under the Rick Riordan Presents imprint. So a bunch of mythology, and this one specifically is Mayan mythology, and it's the 3rd book in the series. But I have noticed with a lot of the Rick Riordan Presents books, it just like leaves my mind. I don't remember a single thing about the books. I have a good time reading them, but they're not like, there's no connection like to Percy Jackson. So I gave it 3 stars. It's a good plot, but I just like feel lost. And I think part of it is because I don't understand the gods like I do the Greek gods. And so that's a problem with that. But I finished the series. And then my favorite book of the month, The Dry by Jane Harper. So this is actually like a slow mystery, which I'm realizing that I kind of really like slow mysteries. We follow a federal agent who is actually in the finance department, and he goes home after being away for 20 years because 20 years earlier as a teenager, one of his friends was suspiciously dead. And so he had to leave. But now his like hometown best friend is allegedly a murderer of his whole family. So he's going back to the funeral and stuff because he gets a mysterious note. So it's really slow, but I liked all the mystery. And we also get like flashbacks to 20 years ago. So there's kind of 2 mysteries involved. And I really liked following the federal agent. I love detective point of views. Most people don't, but I really like them. So 5 stars, favorite book of the month. But on the other end of that, I read the sequel, and I did not like this one. I give this one 2 stars, actually. There's a lot of weird like weight mentions in this book that seemed really out of pocket. And it goes both ways, like eating disorders, but also there was a character in here described as fat repeatedly. Like every time she mentioned her, the author had to write about that. And I was like, why do you keep like beating this over the head? Like, we get it. And I didn't like how she wrote the character. It just seemed uncomfortable. And I hated all the characters in this. And if I hate the characters, I'm going to hate the book. So 2 stars. Interesting how this was 5 and this was 2. But there's a 3rd one. I've heard good things about the 3rd one.
I felt the same way because I've read and I haven't read the 3rd yet either because I'm scared.
It was just odd because I was like, this one was so good. And then this one I was like, is this author like kind of problematic? I don't know, but...
And the atmosphere in The Dry, like it's so hot.
Yes, there's like a drought in Australia. Yes. And then this one's pretty cool. It's like set in a forest, which I like forest settings, but I just hated all the characters. So it's hard to feel empathy for any missing characters because I'm like, but you kind of deserved it. But yeah.
I love that when you're like, if you die, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm like, I really don't care.
Well, I love that so much. Are there any books, I know like we're doing this like before the end of the month, but are there any books that you're currently reading or that you're hoping to get to before the end of the month? I have one. I'm currently reading The Quiet Tenant. I am on chapter 36. I don't know if that's halfway, but it looks halfway. We'll say I'm 50% of the way through it, but I'm hoping to finish this before the end of the month.
I'm reading that one soon.
Oh, yay. Good.
Kind.
Oh, so cool. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It has multiple POVs. The chapters are relatively short. And because I'm so interested in all the POVs, I'm loving it, you know, and it's just going quickly. But sometimes I'll sit down and I'll feel like I'm reading it forever. And I've only read like a few pages and I'm like, I think I'm just absorbed in the world, you know? So it's really good. I really like it.
I started 2 books today, actually. So this morning I had a 12-mile run. So I started a new audiobook. I started The Lost Hero. And I made it like 100 pages in. So like I said, I'm rereading all of the Percy Jackson books. So I'm excited because I just love these books so much. And then I also started The Grimrose Girls. And I'm already 185 pages in. Like this is flying by. And it's the same thing. There's point of views from like 4 different girls. And I love all the point of views. And it's also set in the boarding school in Switzerland. And it's giving me the TV show Once Upon a Time vibes because there's like a curse and fairy tales, but the kids there like don't know that their lives are the fairy tales. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
I am a mood reader, so there's probably a lot of books I want to read by the end of the month, but the two that I'm in the middle of are Herc, which is a queer retelling of the people of Hercules, but like from the people that knew him. And so it's also told in like a really fun format where there's like news articles, but they're written on tablets type thing. Like it's just kind of cute and funny. So I'm enjoying that. And then I need to get 𝒐𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒃 read for the Modern Mrs. Darcy book club. So those are the two that I'm in the middle of right now.
I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on 𝒐𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒃.
The first chapter had me like cringing, so but it's good so far.
Yeah.
So my library hold on One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid came in like a week and a half ago. So if I'm going to read it, I need to read it. And then I didn't get to this one for the Upside Down Readathon, but this was my nostalgia prompt. It's Lois Lowry's newest book called The 𝒂𝒏𝒏𝒄𝒂𝒔 Project. And I met her at Mississippi Book Fest. And I hadn't heard about this book yet, but I got her to sign it too. But this is about, it's a fiction story, but it's related to a discovery that was made in northern Germany about a body that was found in a bog that was 2,000 years old. And so it's kind of the story, but there's also research chapters on these bodies. So she has it split into like history and story. So you're getting some like facts. And I love Lois Lowry's writing. So I'm really excited to read this, and it's super short. So I think I'll fly through a middle grade book before the month is over.
Yeah, I saw that in your TBR for the Upside Down Readathon. And before this year, The Giver by Lois Lowry was my favorite book of all time. So I love her. I love her writing. I read the quartet. And when I saw that book, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to read that book. I just love her writing too.
Another one coming out soon too.
Yeah, I'm surprised she's still writing, but I'm like, you go for it, you know?
She is so sassy. Like listening to her talk she had like a big like symposium dedicated to her basically. And she was just so sassy. And she's like, I'm 86. My teeth are bad, but I'm still here writing.
I love it so much. Yeah, one of my prized possessions is Yvette, who's in the comments. Like, she sent me a signed book of The Giver, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like your life made like such a good gift to send me. I had no idea it was coming either, so I was really excited about that. Hello, Yvette. Yeah, Gwen's living all of our dreams over here, reading for a living. Oh my goodness. I read 13, hoping to add a few more before the end of the month. So excited for oh my goodness. I know, Jessie, it's going to be so good. Yes, The Collected Regrets of Clover, y'all get on it. September House right now. 23 books so far this month. Might get a few more in, but I was sick pretty much the whole month, so I had lots of time. I know. I'm sorry, Kayla. Yep, I'm always a rebel. Such a rebel over here. Unrated translates, if you have nothing nice. Well, you're not wrong, Keisha. Yes, the 7-year slip. Agree on the new Alice Feeney. Yeah, it did not feel like Alice Feeney. And I kept saying that over and over. I was like, if her name was not on this book, I would like, you would be like, for $1 million, name your top 5 authors that you think wrote this. None of them would have been Alice Feeney.
So
like,
how do you feel about Rock, Paper, Scissors?
I liked it. It wasn't my favorite. I think my favorite by her is Daisy Darker, just because I like coastal town. I didn't rate it 5 stars.
Interesting. I love Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I wish I could take Daisy Darker out of my brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I think her books are really like hit or miss for people, like depending what they like. But for Daisy Darker, for me, it was more of the like atmosphere and stuff like that.
The atmosphere was good.
So,
but I hated the characters, and like I said, if I hate the characters, I don't like the book.
I couldn't name one character that was in that book except for Daisy Darker, because I am not a character person at all. Like literally, unless they stand out for me. Like earlier with 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒂𝒔, I remember his characters because they really like stick in my mind. But other characters from like regular, I'm like, I have no idea who they were. I don't care. It's all about the plot. Yep. She's the friend who DNF'd the 7-year slip. Yes. I used to, you guys know, I used to annotate a lot. It just became a lot to keep up with. And so I stopped, but now I'm kind of like starting again. So we'll see what happens. But that one was worth annotating because like literally I could not stop highlighting in the 7-year slip. Love the Dead Romantics. I'm really looking forward to the 7-Year Slip. Yes. Jesse and I both said, because I think Jesse gave the Dead Romantics 4 stars. I rated it 5 stars, but we both loved the 7-Year Slip more.
I'm so excited.
So much hate to Keisha. Yep. Moving on. Probably would have enjoyed it. There's just some things that I don't want to read in books. Yep. All right. House of Salt and Sorrows. I didn't love House of Salt and Sorrows. I didn't get the hype. I gave it a 3. Yep. There's a book for everybody, you know.
It's okay.
You're stirring that pot, Keisha.
Pot anyway.
I have so many unpopular bookish opinions. I'm constantly stirring over here.
I love it. I think I just want to have people on that, like, one person loves the book and the other person hates the book, and be like, and go. And I'll tell you who wins the argument.
That'd be so funny.
Oh my goodness. It was so good. The creepy factor was there, but not too strong. And you're not a fan of most creepy books. Okay. I couldn't get over the Maybelline line. Stranger House.
I read that to my best friend today who was hanging out with me, and he was like, is it a parody? And I was like, no.
Let's see. Is it weird that everyone is saying how bad Before the Rose, the Stranger Upstairs is, and I'm over here becoming more and more interested in it? A little bit, Jesse, a little bit. Read the Divine Rivals this one too. Here for Keeley's strong opinions. Me too. I'm loving it. Like I said, maybe we'll have a Battle of the Books episode or something, because I would freaking love
I could name a few like right now that I'm just like, I'm ready to tussle.
I'll like reach out to people and be like, hey, give me your top 5. Like, you will die for this book, and then I'll pit people against people. So. Oh my goodness. The discipline that must have took. Let's see. My mood reading could never. Reading like a shelf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there used to be a readathon that did that.
Yeah? I'm like both. I'm like a mood reader and also TBR. It just depends. And right now, I think with teaching, it's like good to have that structure, because I'm just like, okay, next one. Let's go. And I also need to read my physical TBR because I have way too many. So. Yeah,
it used to be called like Read Your Book Shelfathon or something like that, like RibSat for short.
It's been fun, especially because all of these are like mystery thrillers, and so I'm like, I guess that's the mood I'm in right now. So
yeah, and it was run by this creator named Miranda, and I did it a couple times, but she was like, you could pick anywhere on your shelf to start, but you literally read like one book after the other, after the other, after the other. She doesn't do it anymore. Like, it was like ages ago, you know. Yeah. But oh my gosh, so fun. Watch the movie. Oh, okay. This is probably about the cabin at the end of the world. So you were talking about how slow the book was. That was one of the, I would say, first horror books that I read, or early on in my like horror, journey. So I was like riveted the whole time, but the movie is so slow.
Really?
I think tried to I've watched a little bit of it, like 3 sittings, and I'm still not through the movie yet. So
I just feel like the book was like just the same thing over and over. So I was like, okay, I get it.
The movie is kind of too. So maybe
but Rupert Grint's in it. So I'm like,
I know, you're not wrong. Hello, how are you? Currently in the middle of 3, the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, Gentle and Lowly, and the Social Sanity in an Insta World. Picked up The Quiet Tenant at the library. Yeah, it's really good, y'all. It's really good. Yeah. Finish off Of Time and Turtles, Mending the World, Shell and Shattered. Wow, there's so many S's right here. I can't keep up. Shell by Shattered Shelby Montgomery. Wow. It's like one of those tongue twisters. I'm sorry. And then Spineless by Samantha San Miguel. I cannot. I'm so sorry, Meg. This is a joke, right? This is a joke. I can't. I can never. Oh man, there's more. The United States. Oh man, I can't. I love you for this. Thank you so much. I can't keep up. How didn't like The House Across the Lake, but Daisy Darker. Well, I didn't say I like the twist now.
Come on.
Me and Keeley share the same opinion about Emily Henry too, which I love.
Yep. I'll be the opposite in the fight with you guys.
Okay.
So you don't like Emily Henry?
I
Yeah, you love.
cannot stand. I actually have a vlog all about her, so if you want to watch.
I haven't seen that. Is it recent or is it just older and I haven't seen
I
it?
can't remember when I did it, sometime this summer, but this was me reading Book Lovers. I was halfway through. I read one more sentence. I was like, nope, can't do it. And I drove to the next town over and unhauled it. Like, I couldn't do it.
That's funny. Book Lovers was my least favorite Emily Henry.
Mine too. Gwen.
Actually, no, I did that with Happy Place. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I liked Beach Read. I gave it 4 stars. And then it just very quickly went downhill.
Okay.
Beach Read might be one of my favorite books of the year.
Yeah, that one was, I can agree on that one. That was good.
Okay, then I'll be your friend after this.
But like how Keisha said in the 7-year slip, there's just some things she doesn't want to read in books. Yeah. Emily Henry does that too. There's like a few things that she has in every single book. And I'm like, I don't want to read about that. So
yeah, makes sense. Fanboying for Heather, but really enjoying all the discussions.
That I read the Maybelline line too early.
Love that. Finished Happiness False Today. I think people will be surprised about my. Well, you have to say, Lena, don't leave us hanging. The book, Angie Kim. Yeah, she wrote Miracle Creek.
Oh, okay.
And I know that's one of Lena's favorites. So I'm thinking maybe she didn't like that one.
Maybe she pulled a me with these ones, like 5 and 2. So
yeah, maybe. Also doing a reread of Percy Jackson in the Olympian series, which I'm loving. See, that I can read, Meg.
The trailer, I got very emotional about.
I didn't even see the trailer. I didn't read any of those books.
I couldn't help but just cry because it just looks amazing.
I love that for you guys. Stab me in the heart. Justice for Emily Henry. I know, right, Jess?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Happy Place is one of my favorites of this year. Yeah, I think Happy Place is, I feel like Emily Henry's books are mismarketed as romance books, and they're really not romance books. I think the most maybe romancy books are maybe like the first 2, maybe, but not even really the first one. Like maybe just People We Meet on Vacation. But even it feels more literary to me than romance. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like they're contemporary stories, literary stories with romance mixed in. But definitely Happy Place is like a friendship story to me. It's not like the romance so it's like contemporary, and then it's a friendship story, and then it's a romance story. I mean, I liked it, but it's not a romance, in my opinion. But I cried so hard reading Happy Place by Emily Henry, but also if they would have only communicated more. Well, right. See, that's the whole thing. People always say that, well, if they would have communicated. Well, if they would have communicated, there wouldn't have been a book.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our fall book recommendations. I know everybody's looking for their fall book recs. I know some of us probably already have videos on our channel of fall recommendations and stuff, but I figured just in case you haven't watched their videos yet, or you haven't found a video that would recommend you a great book to read this fall, that's what we're here to do. So my recommendation, I'll go first, has to be Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. This is the first Rachel Harrison book that I've ever read. I have since read all of her books. Black Sheep is on my October TBR. And this was just so fun and funny and also gory. And I love the sister dynamic in here. And I just didn't ever know, like, okay, what is actually going to happen? But it's like the story on the surface, but then there's so much under. You really have to like dig in to enjoy the full story. So I loved this one. So if you haven't read it, it's like horror, but it's not like, I don't know, it's not like too dark, but there are some gory scenes, because if the front and where it says a werewolf novel is not a tip off, and you're talking to a vegetarian reading about a werewolf, what do werewolves eat? Meat. So it's kind of.
I've been told I need to read her. I haven't read her, but I've been told I need to read Rachel Harrison.
Yeah, this is my favorite so far by her.
She's coming out with a vampire book, so
I know. Like
I'm there.
I'll read all of her books. They're all something like you can tell it's her writing, because it's, even though it's horror, it's kind of cozy at the same time. You don't think you're going to get like too scared or like too icky or like anything like that. But all of her like the monsters in her books are so different, and that's what I think is so cool. So like in this one, it's a werewolf. Do you see that in the first book or the second book that she wrote? No, you see different kind of like monsters and stuff like that. So I love that she's doing something different in every single one. But you could just tell it's her writing. You know, you could take her name off the book, and I'm like, that's Rachel Harrison. Who wants to go next?
I can go. So initially I was going to talk about Harry's Trees. It's like an ode to books.
Oh, I love that.
And it takes place in a forest. So I talk about this in one of my other videos, but this is really good. But because you guys were all talking about the Dead Romantics and I did not love it, the reason why I did not love the Dead Romantics is because at the same time I was reading The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy.
Oh, yes, you told me about this.
And so this is more fantasy, but like in a magical realism. It does take place in an alternate, like a different world kind of, but you don't need world building to understand what's going on. It also takes place in a funeral home, deals with grief really beautifully, but there's kind of this just fun magic element. And the romance to me was more believable. And I didn't like how the reveal was in the Dead Romantics.
True.
I called it at the beginning and was just like, are you freaking kidding me? So it was a book I actually threw across the room. This has a better like resolution at the end, and it just was really cozy and had that kind of like spoopy fall Halloween vibe that I thought it did a really good look at grief too. So they were comparable, but this one is maybe a little more fantasy leaning. So
I love that. I remember you told me that. You're like, if you like this, you have to read this one then.
Interesting. I'll have to try it.
Yeah, it's thicker too.
And I want to read the 7-Year Slip. Like the Dead Romantics didn't turn me off of Ashley Coffey,
right?
But I just couldn't the ending for that book. Really.
Well, I will say, going back to the Dead Romantics, after I finished the 7-Year Slip, Jesse and I started talking about it, and I feel like the Dead Romantics was more about like the grief and stuff like that, and her family, and kind of like coming of age, but like not really coming of age, if you know what I mean. Like she's an adult, she has her life together, but like her life is changing in ways that she didn't think it would. So she's kind of dealing with those changes. I don't know what you would call that, like what literary device that's called, but so it was more like that, but it had a romantic element to it. Whereas the 7-Year Slip is a romance book.
Okay.
Yeah, the Dead Romantics is one, like we were talking with Emily Henry, that I don't really classify as truly romance, because for me what I got out of it was like the grief and the conversations on that, and like in my review I was like, this book healed something in me I didn't even know needed healing, just because of the conversations with grief and how death was just so normalized in that book.
Yeah, that was like grief and family dynamics were like the main things in that book for me.
I've also always wanted to work in a funeral home, so.
Okay, Keeley, have you read The Collected Regrets of Clover?
No.
You have to.
Okay.
I will send you a copy if you need me to. You have to read it. Okay.
So no, excited. That's interesting that you said that, Keeley, because I used to be an estate. I used to do probate and trusts in estates as an attorney at my old firm. And I like multiple books I've talked about have talked about grief tonight. And I think that's just a really good call, because I liked the Dead Romantics for the grief part. I thought they did it really well, but it's just the romance part of it.
Yeah.
But for me, I was like, okay, it's not the best romance, but like this other stuff is so good that I'm like,
I like grief books because I think that's what I used to do.
Yeah. And I did psychology and criminal justice, so like I was around a lot of that stuff too. So.
I love that. All right, so Keeley or Heather, who wants to recommend a book next?
So I have a fall recommendations video. So I picked a book that I didn't include in that video.
Oh, bonus.
Watch it. But speaking of grief, I picked Pet Sematary by Stephen King, which this book is 100% about grief through the lens of haunted, ghostly pets and more. But it was my first Stephen King book. It's really the first like horror I've read in a long time. The first horror book I read was Joe Hill, his son, and Heart-Shaped Box, which is another great recommendation for this season. But this book like made me cry. It wrecked me and it scared me. So I just think it's perfect. Like the vibes are 100% what I would want to pick up this fall. So
love that.
And Stephen King himself said that that's like the darkest book he's ever read or ever written. And he actually, after he wrote it, he put it away because he was like, I can never publish this because it's too horrible. And his wife was like, no, you need to publish it.
Yeah. And like something, I feel like I was listening to it, and the author's note before the audiobook started was something like switching publishing houses or something, and he needed a book to publish. And
that was like all he had. So he was like, I'll have no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I guess it's going out.
There's a new adaptation coming out. I just saw the trailer today.
Is it, okay, we were talking about this today. Is it a movie or a show?
I want to say it's a show. It's on Paramount Plus, so I'm assuming it's a TV show. And it looks like it expands the world and like creates new characters, but it looks so gory, which
I want to look it up now.
Yeah. And it's interesting for me because I'm currently reading Stephen King in publication order. So Pet Sematary is actually one of my least favorites, but then when I watched the movie, I like really fell in love with it.
Love that.
And I have a cat named Zelda, which I didn't read the book first.
Oh.
So she's not named after that Zelda.
Hi, the good Zelda.
All right. My recommendation, The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Kind of stirring the pot again because Riley Sager can do no wrong for me.
Yes, Keeley.
I love Riley Sager so much. My favorite thriller author. And this is also one of my favorite books by him. So talking about the atmosphere in Daisy Darker, this book did for me what that book didn't, because it has the atmosphere, but also the characters are incredible. The main character, Kit, she's actually my favorite Riley Sager character I've ever read. She's so smart and intelligent and like independent, and I just really love that. But it also has the classic spooky vibes because this house is literally falling into the ocean because the cliff is falling apart, and so it's like we have to get everything done before the house falls into the ocean. So, yeah. And it's interesting because I actually got to meet him for this and got it signed and everything, and I got to tell him because this is loosely based on Lizzie Borden, and right before this came out, my brother actually moved next to Lizzie Borden's house. Like he's a minute walk away from it, and I was just like,
this
perfect
is creepy.
timing for that. Yeah, perfect timing.
So
neighbors with Lizzie Borden.
So that's your favorite Riley Sager book?
This one, and okay, I really like all of them. So this one and Home Before Dark are kind of like my top two.
Okay. What about you, Kelsey? Which ones have you read?
I've read all but the road trip one.
Okay.
It was the other night.
I'm kind of okay with that. But when I read Final Girls, it was like I got it from Book of the Month.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a secluded cabin on a girls' trip when I read it, and that was super creepy, but that added to the vibe. So it's my favorite one because it was like the atmosphere 100%. But I loved the house character in The Only One Left, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people hate Survive the Night, but I had a very similar experience to a majority of that book. And so it was kind of the same thing. Like, since I had been in that atmosphere, I was like even more intense. So
I know. I loved that one too, Keeley. Yeah, I don't understand why people didn't like it.
And I got to tell him, I was like, people, because he even spoke about how people hate that book. And I was like, I love that book because something similar has happened to me. And he was like, so you were probably just yelling at the main character the whole time. I was like, yes, I was. I was like, girl, get out.
Have you read Riley Sager books, Heather?
Yeah, I've read all of his books, and Final Girls is my favorite. Mm-hmm. I read it in a day during like COVID quarantine. I just sat on my balcony and read the whole book, and it was my first one by him. So it's just like fond memories. But I think The Only One Left and Home Before Dark are tied for second.
Interesting.
And his writing is just, he's just such a talented author. Oh, I could gush about him.
Yeah, you just can't stop flipping pages.
Yeah.
So Summer says Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Such a great fall book.
Yeah, Liv told me to read Cackle. Like, she loved that one.
Yeah. Started to burn teeth when it first came out, but had to soft DNF it because I had to go back to the library. Well, you need to pick it back up, Elise. Classic King. Love it. They were talking about Cujo. Let's see. Love that one, Keeley.
I've read this at the end, but that's it.
Yeah. Oh my God, that house was so haunted. Your brother's brave. I know, right? I was like, wow. Okay, so for our little bookish game, since it is our September reading wrap up, we are going to choose a book at random, and we are going to be looking for words that begin with the letters S, E, P, and T. We're going to do one at a time. So go ahead and pick a book from your stack. I'll just start with this one. Not that I even read it. And oh no, I can't because it has too many S's on the cover. So what we're gonna do is just pick a book at random, and we're going to flip through the book until we find a word that starts with S. So once you find it, just say I found it, and then we'll stop and we'll go to the next letter. All right, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, on your mark, get set, go.
Found it.
Wow!
Found it.
It's also, of course, it's a steamy book too. So the word is straddling.
All of your words are probably going to be like that.
Oh my goodness.
Keep it PG.
I love that for us. Straddling wins. Okay. All right. Pick a different book if you can. Okay. And we're going to look for an E word on your mark. Get set, go. Oh, eyes. Got it.
You found it.
Eyes.
Dang
Yay.
right when I found examines.
No, I found it.
Oh, yeah. What a way to start, Kelsey.
I was like, this might be a bad idea.
You're like, should I say it? I love it though. Okay, another book if you can. We're gonna do P word. Go.
Found it. Oh, I found two.
Wow.
Back. Personally and particularly.
Ooh, nice. I was like, oh, am I gonna be able to find a P word?
And policing. Man, there's a lot on this page.
Definitely glad I didn't have my romance book for this.
We're gonna not pick the romance book for this one.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and the last letter is T. Pick a book if you can. All right, on your mark, get set, go.
I was ready.
I got it.
Yep,
Tourists.
I have thought. Yay! Oh my goodness. Well, that was so much fun. Thank you guys for coming. I think this was a really good group, and I loved our little like side discussions and stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget, check out their channels. Like Heather said, she already has a recommendation video for fall books. So you got to go check out all of her other recommendations over there. Kelsey has her little witchy vlog coming. I need to go back and watch your video about Emily Henry, Keeley.
Yes.
I'm going to be doing that. So that's going on my watch.
And then I also have all my vampire vlogs too, of course.
Yeah, of course. So
I'm working on another one right now. So
I love that. Yeah, of course. I love doing this for you guys. I love hanging out with new people. Yeah, but thank you guys for watching. Thanks for coming. I hope everybody has a great night. I hope October is a great reading month for everyone. I don't know about you guys, but my TBR for October is out of control because I feel like I save all of the books that I'm like, oh, this is a spooky season book. And then my book is like 500 books long. And I'm like, there's no way. It's not happening. But yeah, subscribe to their channel so you don't miss their content. And I guess we'll talk to you guys later. All right. Bye.